Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video of a game that I played recently, which is one of the strangest games that, in all honesty, I think I've ever played because, well, let's just get into the chess. So I start off with d4 and my opponent goes d5. I play bishop f4, the only opening I know, which is the accelerated London system. My opponent goes e6, which is a line, and after e3, my opponent decides to play this line bishop d6, which is a little bit different than normal play. Normal play goes with knight f6 and maybe c5 there. But bishop b6 invites a different style of game, but normally it transposes pretty quickly if I don't play in like the main line, which I try not to. I normally go bishop g3 here, which is just a move. It's completely reasonable. The top move is this move queen g4, which is fine, but I like bishop g3. It just keeps it a little more solid, so I enjoy. The idea is, of course, after bishop takes, I'm going to take back with my h-pawn. I'm going to be better because my rook is active and I have quick moves like bishop d6, knight f3, and I have pressure on the king side always. So my opponent doesn't take, obviously, and he decides to go with this move h5. Again, a little bit strange. And now the strangeness kind of starts happening. h5 is already one of these moves that you don't ever really see in the London. So it's a little bit. So I was a little bit taken aback when I saw this move, and I decided here that I would decide. Okay, I'm spouting over my words again. I decided here that I would simply evaluate the position and then like see if it's really all that scary. I knew this was a bad move, of course, so I thought for a little bit, and then just played a normal move. I played knight f3, which is the best move after like 5 seconds of thought, because there's not really much to think about there. My opponent goes h4. I obviously can't take, since the queen and the rook defend, and I'm forced to play the move bishop d6. Okay, pretty reasonable. cd6, and the move h3 is also practically forced. As you can see, I haven't spent any time. I can't allow the move h3 from him because then there could be some issues. Like, for example, if I play the move c3, for example, h3 comes here and I have to play like crazy. I have to play this move g4, because if I play the move g3, as you can see, the eval bar already gives some advantage to black, and my position really just isn't good because I'm not going to be able to castle over on this side of the board, on the king side, and my bishop is going to have not the most fun time getting out. Like, he has to go here and stuff, which is, it's fine, but it's not what you want. The engines love putting their pawns on h3, so we just stop that. h3. My opponent goes knight c6 and I go c3. Pretty reasonable. Not the best move. Should have played c4. Actually got pretty mad at myself for not playing c4. c4 is distinctly better because I'm threatening to take and double the pawns. And I'll tell you why I didn't play this move. I didn't play this move because I thought DC was a move, and after this, maybe this move, and I was like, what am I doing? Didn't he just like get his pawns undoubled? But it actually shows that the engine actually shows that this position is really good. Like, if I play a move like knight bd2, for example, my rook gets the c file, I get castle very quickly, and actually black is in some trouble because it's hard for black's king to get safe, since this rook is stuck guarding the pawn, right? So either way, I played the move c3. A little bit annoying. I don't know why I really play that move. And my opponent plays a very reasonable move. He plays the move e5, coming down in the center. And still the best move is the move c4, which is logical. I should have done that. But here I decided that that wasn't really the case. I had to think here for a little bit because I thought I had misplayed. I thought like somehow I hadn't done my theory correctly with the move c3. Of course, I should have played c4. I was kind of irritated, like I said. So I thought here for a little bit, and I decided that taking on e5 was probably the best course of action. It does undouble his pawns. If you were like aware, like, oh, the queen opens up, his queen also opens up, so there's no pawn winning there. And I was thinking about it for a little bit, and I decided that this was decent because I got the move bishop b5 in, which is actually the only move that keeps equality. Every other move, I guess that the next best move here would probably be like something like knight d2 or queen b3 or something. Actually, computer says second best move is queen d2, and it's minus 0.5, which is not good. Oh, give me a second. I just realized that should be on 3 seconds, not 5 seconds. Because otherwise, if it's too high, then my computer starts being very loud, because it is not the best computer for that type of thing. Either way, bishop b5. My opponent goes f6. Pretty reasonable. Spends a lot of time on that move. He spent like over a minute on that move, which is kind of crazy. I assume that the reason why he spent so long is because he couldn't really find anything better. He obviously didn't want to play e4 because of some knight e5 stuff, maybe some knight d4 stuff. Yeah, computer likes knight d4 a lot better. Knight d4 is pressuring, and my knight is pretty strong there, which was my idea, but I understand why I didn't go for it. I think the reason why I didn't want to play f6 is because it kind of blocks the queen's access to of this pawn. So again, it's going to be tough for black to castle, right? So f6 is played, f6 on the board, and I think here for a little bit, and I really shouldn't have even thought at all. Like, I was trying to get my knight out. This was my main idea. I really wanted to get my knight out because I thought that my knight was not doing anything, and I was looking for pawn sacrifices. I thought I needed a pawn sack here, like e4 or c4. I decided that e4 wasn't that good of a pawn sack because after here, takes, I'll just show you here, takes, knight d2. I thought my position wasn't very good, simply with a simple move like this. And I'm down a pawn here, and like you could argue that black has some weaknesses with pawn islands here, but actually I'm having to develop like this, get my knight out here. He has this nice b file to go down on. His bishop can come to a6, to a6 to stop me from castling in some lines, and his king actually can get active pretty quickly with like king e7, and actually white is just worse, which is a problem. So then I was thinking, you know what, c4 might be a good move too, and if he takes, maybe I just recapture, maybe I don't recapture, maybe I go for this line again, maybe I go for takes, and like knight c3 now. I know this was interesting, maybe knight bd2, yeah, I thought this is the engine, this is what the engine says is best. Actually no, it's not. What does it want? Knight fd2, to prevent c3. Okay, reasonable, understandable. But yeah, that was I was kind of thinking about that move. c4 is actually the best move, but after dc, what you're supposed to do was just not trade queens, play knight bd2. I don't know if I'd be able to find that. But what happened in the game after f6 is I played this move knight a3, which I thought was interesting, just trying to get my knight out. Maybe the idea is knight c2 and knight up here. Interesting. Maybe I want to stop this. Maybe I want to play c4 later and put my knight on c2. I don't know. There's some ideas there. Knight e7, reasonable, safeguarding his knight. I go c4, which is one of my ideas of knight e3. Maybe I could have just castled. I don't know why I didn't do this. I really should have castled. It comes back to bite me later. But I go c4, and as you can see, the position is kind of like a really strange position at this point. Which is why I made a video on this game. This position is just really weird and unorthodox. It's not something that you like ever see, because like the knight's on the rim, the pawn is like over here, neither party has castled, and like the center is just like exploding, which is really interesting. And my opponent goes king f8, which is crazy. He obviously didn't want to castle due to this being a pawn loss after cd, knight d5, and probably. Okay, I'm looking at the engine lines right now. Engine just says castle. Like, don't even think about just castle. Okay. And then the pawn is going to be lost on the next move, because after this move, you lose the pawn up here, I thought. Oh, you just play knight h4 because the queen is overloaded. Oh, okay. Isn't the knight like getting trapped? g3, I guess? No, not g3. Knight g6? Oh, okay. Okay, that's pretty cool. Is this, what is the, I'm still kind of, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah. So this is what's going on. So we're just mating him. Yeah, that's funny. Either way, I should have castled. Instead I played c4. My opponent goes king f8, and I got to try and do something quick here. Really, there's only two moves. It's castles or CD. I decided on CD because I haven't castled yet, and I do not care about my king. Really, I should be caring about my king. Queen d5, takes, and this position is what I thought was decent. And I was like, you know what? This position seems pretty good. What I can do here quickly, I can either castle my king, or I can get my knight out into the position. I was thinking about it for a while, and I thought, you know, yes, my king needs to get to safety, but my knight is kind of in the way. Like, a move I really like to play is a move a3 to stop the knight from coming to b4 and targeting both these squares. But I don't do that. I don't do so. I try to make that happen, and I play the move knight c4, which is the second best move. But really, I should be castling, and I don't know why I'm not castling. My opponent goes bishop a6, a really good move. I have to play knight ft2. This is the only move. Knight ft2 is like the only move. If I go b3, I thought that was weakening the dark squares here, which was a bad idea since this knight immediately pressures. And so I really had to go knight ft2, but instead I went knight a5. And now, as you can see, the problems start arising because I can't castle. I just can't castle. This bishop stops me from castling, and that bishop is going to be there for forever. I'm never going to be able to castle. My opponent goes knight b4, and I'm not going to lose any pawns because I don't want to admit to my opponent that I'm worse. If I admit to my opponent that I'm worse, then I'm probably just going to lose. So I play the move king d2, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to lose any pawns, not going to lose into any forks or anything. So king d2, the best move. Another move a computer likes is long castles, but I just didn't want to lose any pawns. I'm just not going to do that. Anyway, king d2, my opponent goes rook d8 check, and my idea was to go king c3. And say to my opponent, okay, there's no mate after rook here. You can't do this. I win the knight. There's no mate. Like, I'm able to take this pawn sometimes and stop rook b8 over here. I'm able to trade off this rook pretty quickly after like king c7. I can simply take on c6, something like this. And, oh, I simply have a fork. So we have a nice little fork here. I trade off everything, and I'm up in exchange. But either way, my opponent decides not to do that, and he brings the knight back to d5. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You know what, guy? I'm totally down for a draw. I'm totally down for repetition of moves. I'm very scared by what's going on in the position. I don't like it. I'm going to go king c2, and I'm going to say, if you want to repeat moves, so be it. Help yourself, man. But he doesn't do that. Instead, he tries to win the game, which is, I mean, I would do that, the same thing. It's very reasonable. My opponent goes bishop e2. But this is a mistake. This is a mistake because I don't really understand what the bishop is doing. It's not really doing anything on that square. You see, his idea is not really going to be taking the knight, which is what I was expecting it to be. Because the knight is kind of, like what happens if he takes the knight? If he takes the knight, he doubles my pawns, kind of, but not really. And, like, he's not able to advance at all. If his knight comes here, I'm going to be able to be fine. And I thought that this move was just kind of bad. Sorry, give me a second. Sorry about that. And yeah, so that move just seemed like a big mistake to me. And after that, I decided, okay, well, this is a perfect time to play move a3. Stop this knight b4 idea, which would check my king and be relatively irritating. So why not? It seemed like the best move to me. And my opponent goes king f7. Also reasonable. Simply trying to connect the rooks. Maybe he wants to get over here. Maybe that was the idea of bishop e2. Maybe he wants to take so then this pawn isn't hanging anymore, and then come over here with his rooks. Okay, that's not the worst idea in the world. Obviously, I can't take on this simply due to rook c8, which would win the knight. I forgot to mention that earlier. And after the move rook a c1, I thought that I was doing quite well. And in fact, the next series of moves, my opponent plays very, very badly. e4 is a blunder. e4 is a blunder. And it's a blunder for a reason that I didn't really understand at the time. It's a blunder because my knight is able to get up to this square immediately, fork these two pieces, and I'm actually just going to be winning a bit of material, but I didn't realize that. I should have played that. And I'll tell you why I didn't play this move knight d4, which is the best move. I was concerned of bishop d3, and after king d2, I thought that there might be some issues along the d file with maybe some estranged move like c5 or something. But I for some reason, I didn't even realize that my rook is open up here, and I'm actually doing quite well. Also, another thing that why this is good is because the d file is never going to open up. The d file is never going to open up. His knight, bishop, and my knight are in the way. And if my pieces are in the way and he has no pawns to be able to attack them, then I'm probably going to be fine. And I didn't realize that again. So what I played after the move e4, I thought, okay, I cannot allow that bishop from going to d3. I thought that would be a big issue. So I played the move knight e1, which was not a good move. Very bad move. But my opponent didn't punish me. My opponent didn't punish me, and he allowed me to live. He played the move rook b8, a mistake. The first mistake of four consecutive mistakes in a row here, which is pretty funny. I simply play the move knight king b1. I could have taken on c5. The reason why I didn't is because I'm bad. Obviously taking c6 because after this move king b1, simple knight defends, but I didn't realize that. I mean the rook defense, but I didn't even realize that, and I played king b1 instead. It's still not a bad move. It's equality. My opponent gives another mistake. He goes rook b6. Now I take on c6 because, I mean, why not? It's a free pawn. Stops him from going rook b8. Stops him from going here due to this discovered attack on his rook. So I thought this was very nice. And after the move rook e8, a move I didn't really understand, I guess the idea was this. I was like, okay, I'm doing quite well, and I put my knight on d4. Just saying that my knight is a pretty good piece there, and I'm doing quite well. I could have... what I really wanted to do was get this knight out, so I probably could have played the move g3. No, that would be stupid. Sorry. Obvious. I needed my knight out, so I probably could have played this move like rook c5 or something. That's a much better move. Sorry about that slip up earlier. And I can get knight c2 after that, get my knight up here. Maybe king h1 to stop any like weird discovery, weird like pinned attacks with this rook. And I'm doing quite well. But I didn't do that, and instead I went knight d4, which isn't bad. And after rook e b8, clearly trying to get in there, I am not actually doing that well. I'm doing pretty poorly. Unless I find one of two moves. One of the moves is pretty easy, and I actually don't know why I played this move. Why I didn't play this move. The move b3 is not hard. I should have played this. This is the second best move. The move that I was looking at also, and the reason why I didn't play this move is actually it's a very, very tricky move. I'm not ashamed that I missed this move. This move b4 is the top engine move, which I was looking at, but I thought there were some issues with knight takes on b4, and after ab rook b4, actually I only have one move. I have to go king c2 out into the open, which looks terrifying. After this move, my king is almost getting mated, but I'm fine. And you know what? I'm not ashamed that I didn't see this. This is insane. I thought that king c2 is kind of just a non-thing that could ever happen, simply because it walks into the line of fire. And so I played a different move. I decided to defend my king, but I played the wrong move. I go rook c2, defending the pawn. But this doesn't work. Doesn't work. First of all, this is a nice tactic. It doesn't work. I thought I couldn't take. Oh, yeah, I guess I can. But the idea was after king a1, I thought that I would just play king a1 and be fine, which is actually the top engine move. You can take this, which is interesting. I didn't realize king c1 was a move when I was looking at this. Okay, just chose to tell that I wasn't playing too well at this point. But rook c2, my opponent finds a very, very nice move. He finds this move bishop d3, which is the only move that works. And basically he's pinning my rook to my king, but I was thinking, you know what, this is not a very good move. I simply go knight d3, and I play e3, and I'm fine. And this is my calculation. I thought this was reasonable, and I'm doing quite well. But I'm wrong. I'm wrong, because my opponent calculated a little bit further than me. After the move rook d2, defending my pawn, targeting this pawn, I'm worse after the move knight c3. I obviously saw this, but I didn't see the follow-up. I didn't see that this move knight e4 was the thing. And if I took the pawn, he forks me on c2 with the rooks. Not to mention that this pawn is going to be falling later. And I'm actually just much worse here, and I have to give up my exchange. The only move that works here is the move rook hd1, which I didn't spend too much time on because it's pretty obviously forced. He takes my exchange and here, and this is the position that we got. But as you can see, my opponent isn't actually winning that much. He's up an exchange, but I have a pawn for the exchange, plus my opponent is down a minute on the clock, so I can use that because we're getting into time pressure now. We have to play fast. My opponent goes rook c8, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's time. I take the pawn. I'm like, why are we even thinking? I spend 4 seconds. I take the pawn. Really is about playing fast and confusing my opponent. He goes rook c1 and decides to go with the rook g1. Very reasonable idea. I think here for a little bit, and I decided to play this move rook back to d2, defending my second rank, so then he can't win my f2 pawn after rook g2, and I play knight f5, saying that, okay, I might be coming here, I might be winning this pawn. He decides to trade the h pawns, actually yes, the h pawns, I thought that was the a pawn for a second, with rook h2, so I simply go takes and come back to f5. And now what we have going on here is my opponent, we have a 2-on-2, a 2-on-1, and I'm down in exchange, but I have pressure on his king, which can be problematic, and with 43 seconds on the clock, sometimes it's easy to miss a fork into a fork, or just a normal fork. And after the move g6, I go check, king e6. He has 30 seconds on the clock now at this point, which is hard to play with, but it's still possible for him to survive, still possible for him to win the game. I go knight c8, hitting the pawn, hitting the rook. I'm making it very confusing for him. Rook b7, I give this check, king e5, and I go rook c6, right? I'm defending my knight, making sure that there's no play on it, no rook here, which would trap the knight. Don't want any of that to happen. And my opponent goes rook h2. I go with rook c2. He has 20 seconds on the clock versus my 50, so I'm doing quite well on time. And after rook b5, I've waited for this long. He finally blunders. He has 13 seconds on the clock. I go f4, check on the king, opening up an attack on his rook. And after king e6, rook takes rook, I am winning the game. He could go here, try to get something going, but even knight takes a7. You can't do this simply because of rook h7. And you cannot actually defend your rook. I'd be winning the rook. Which is not hard to calculate, and also my rook is just going to get all of this. Instead, he goes here, I simply take on a7, comes here, I go here, my knight's never getting trapped, and I go rook h6, and with 2 seconds on the clock, my opponent times out after rook takes g6, and a good game by me. After takes, I would simply take on f6, and I wouldn't mind about this due to the fact that I have 3 extra pawns, and this is very easily winning. Yeah, so that was this game. It was a pretty strange one, I have to admit. My opponent played pretty well and actually outplayed me there with the move. Which was it? It was this move bishop d3 that I missed. And I had to fight back in the time pressure to make it work. This is a very interesting game. But that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed, remember to like, subscribe, to all the normal things that YouTubers tell you to do. And if you didn't enjoy, I don't know why you were watching this long. Yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.